Hello there, welcome to another episode of the Story Structure series by Script Writing Tips. One of the most important and repeatedly confused plot point is the inciting incident. In this episode, I'm going to show you what is the inciting incident and how to find it in a story or a film. The screenwriter, analyst, and author of the famous book Screenplay, Sid Field, states that the inciting incident is the incident that sets the story in motion, which is quite reasonable if you think of what the word inciting means. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, incite means to move to action, stir up, spur on, urge on. What I find especially interesting is the following. Incite stresses a stirring up and urging on and may or may not imply initiating. We will explain later that at this point the protagonist may or may not accept the call. So this is why the inciting incident may or may not initiate things. Let's see the meaning of the catalyst as well. In the Collins Dictionary, we find a substance that increases the rate of a chemical reaction without itself suffering any permanent chemical change, and a person or thing that causes a change. You've probably heard other terms also being used in the place of inciting incident, such as the catalyst or the call to adventure. The latter is a term coined by Joseph Campbell. Personally, I prefer to use the terms inciting incident or catalyst, but I am more careful with the term the call to adventure, as I believe that the call to adventure is something that happens to the protagonist, and that's why sometimes can be where the inciting incident is, but other times we can find it elsewhere, so I wouldn't use it interchangeably as the other two. Now that we've seen what inciting incident means, let's see how we can find it. Here's my method. Make a summary of the story or just the beginning of the story, preferably using words we use in fairy tales. Always do this after having seen the entire movie. For example, once upon a time there was this person in this world, and there was that, and everything was like this, until one day something happened to the world or to the person, and the person had to do something, had to act. Well, that one day is the inciting incident. Everything that it is said before that is the backstory. Pay attention to the phrase one day. If it's still confusing, then try to spot the first turning point. That is the event or incident that leads the story towards the second act. The inciting incident comes always before the first turning point and never later. You know that little girl who wore the Red Riding Cloak, so everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood? Well, Little Red has a grandma she adores. One day, her beloved grandma got sick. Very, very sick. Little Red prepares a basket with some food and wine, and she takes it to her through the forest, unsuspecting of the hidden big black wolf that followed her. Her grandma's sickness is the inciting incident. If grandma hadn't been sick, there would be no story. I'd like to stress here that when we are in the inciting incident, the protagonist still has a choice: to accept or to deny the call to adventure and keep living in the ordinary world. If nothing else happens, then we won't have a story to tell. It ends here. That's why later we have the first turning point, where usually there is no choice. The protagonist just can't refuse. So when grandma got sick, the Red Riding Hood could say, "Oh, I don't want to go to grandma, she smells. I'd like to stay here and play with the rest of the kids. Why don't you go, Mom? It's your mother after all." And if Mom visited grandma, then we wouldn't have a story, because the big bad wolf likes his meat fresh and medium rare. Be careful not to confuse the inciting incident with the first turning point. The difference is that the inciting incident starts the story, but the first turning point starts the actual adventure. Back to Red Riding Hood, the story starts when grandma got sick, so she has to deliver food to her. But her adventure starts after meeting with a big bad wolf, when she reveals to him where she goes. Let's see some examples from films. The Game. Nicholas is a wealthy, successful banker who is estranged from his family members, his ex-wife and his brother. One day, his brother presents him with an odd gift. A participation in a personalized real-life game. After his brother's pressure, Nicholas reluctantly accepts. Sleepless in Seattle. Sam, who's still grieving for his wife's death, moves to Seattle with his son Jonah. Annie, on the other hand, she's engaged, but she's not feeling the magic with her fiancé. One day, Jonah calls into a talk radio program to find a new wife for his father. Sam grudgingly gets on the line to discuss his feelings. Annie hears Sam speak and falls for him.
How do you know that?
I live here, Dad.
Look, it's Christmas. Maggie, my wife, she really did it. I mean, she loved it. She made everything beautiful. It's just tough.
The Godfather. Michael is the youngest son of Vito Corleone, a crime boss. One day, the drug baron Sollozzo asks Vito for investment and protection for his drug business, but Vito refuses. However, Sollozzo understands that Sonny, Vito's firstborn, has a different opinion than his father on the matter, and he decides to kill Vito so he can do business with Sonny. And that's the inciting incident. Her. In a near future, Theodore is a lonely, introverted, unhappy man because of his impending divorce. One day, he sees an ad about a new operating system.
What's out there?
A system that evolves and develops consciousness.
Element Software is proud to introduce the first artificially intelligent operating system. An intuitive entity that listens to you, understands you.
So he decides to buy it.
It's not just an operating system. It's a consciousness. Introducing OS 1.
The Goonies. A band of kids are about to lose their friends because of a property developing company which plans to destroy their homes to build a country club. One day, the children discover an old pirate map in the attic.
That says 1632. Is that a year, something? No, it's your tropical storm Fulton. Yes, it's a year, Chuck. Look, it's a map of our coastline.
that Spanish junk right there?
The mouth, you said you could translate.
and they decide to follow it into an underground cavern
Intruders
in search of a lost treasure.
soaked with blood of the trespassing thief.
Guys, this map is old news. Everybody and their grandfather went looking for that. When our parents were our age. I mean, haven't you ever heard of that guy? What's his name? The pirate guy. One-Eyed Willie.
One-eyed Willie.
Eyes Wide Shut. Bill is a successful doctor who lives in New York with his beautiful wife Allison and their daughter. One day, while smoking pot, Allison reveals to him that she was having sexual fantasies about a man she met. Bill gets jealous and he starts a night-long adventure. After a web search, I found so many different explanations of what the inciting incident is that my head is spinning. Let's clear up some of these misconceptions. I've read somewhere that there are 3 different kinds of inciting incidents. No, there aren't. In a story, there are of course many incidents that occur. That's fine. That's how stories go. One thing leads to another. But usually there is only one inciting incident, one event that sets the story in motion. There is no rule in which page or in which minute you can find the inciting incident. I'm sorry, but every story has its own rhythm. Every story is different. No rules about that. The only rule is that the inciting incident is always in the first act and always occurs before the first turning point. Usually it's something that occurs during the first 10 minutes of the film. Usually, but it's not a rule. Sometimes the inciting incident occurs in the 12th minute or in the 15th minute of a movie. And that's fine, because a particular story probably needs it there. The inciting incident is not something that occurs before the story begins. Many people say this, but it's wrong. The story starts in the moment that the movie starts. Everything that happened before is backstory. There may be many important incidents that happened back there, but it's not what you're looking for. You don't search for the inciting incident there. If it is there, then there's something completely wrong with the story. You have to remember that no matter how strange things are in the beginning of the story, we're still in the ordinary world, still learning the backstory. You have to be able to find the inciting incident inside the story, not somewhere before the story starts. The inciting incident does not necessarily happen to the protagonist, but it definitely affects her or him somehow. In Jurassic Park, the inciting incident happens to a handler of one of the dinosaurs, but indirectly affects Dr. Allen because he is invited to certify the safety of the park. If the inciting incident, the incident that sets the story in motion, happened before the story begins, then the story has already begun before it starts, so we meet the protagonist in the middle of acting, of doing things and taking actions to resolve his or her problems. I hope it's more clear now. Thanks for watching. Another episode of the Story Structure series has come to its end. I will continue to release videos on how to find the various plot points, as well as sharing tips, explaining structure, and analyzing movies and stories, so stick around. Let me know what you'd like to see. Feel free to share your comments, questions, or tips in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video and found it useful, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to use more of this content, hit the subscribe button. Thank you all. This is Apollonia and Script Writing Tips.